Hockey Talk Show on this Tuesday. It's Giving Tuesday. Lots to talk about. Fines and trades and all that good stuff. Fines and trades, they're adding up in the National Hockey League. 2 $5,000 fines handed out in the National Hockey League last night. Chicago Blackhawks fans, Minnesota Wild fans, you'll be interested to hear about that one. The Blackhawk and Minnesota Wild going to be forking over a lot of cash. I want to talk about the big test we have in the National Hockey League tonight between the Islanders and the Vancouver Canucks. Elliot Friedman dropped his 31 notes. What do they call them? 31 thoughts. And that's it. 31 thoughts. We'll pick through some of those. The big trade rumor going around the league right now, and a couple of more little tidbits in there as well as we get going on this Tuesday night. Might be more on the quicker side of the show, so if you have a question or a comment, drop it in the YouTube or Facebook Live chat or call the number at 631-438-1768. That's 631-438-1768. We, by the way, have left the links in the description below on Facebook and YouTube for some of the holiday savings that we have. Also left the links for the Rangers and Sabres Winter Classic jerseys up there. I figured a lot of people are doing their holiday shopping, and if you want to buy something for the hockey fan in your life, especially if they're a Winter Classic Rangers or Sabres fan, we got that up there for you so you guys can enjoy some pretty sweet savings. Let's get right into the deal, and I guess let's save the trade rumors. That's the juicy one. We'll save that one, and let's get into the fines that were levied last night by the player safety division of the National Hockey League. Let's start over here first with Patrick Kane. Yeah, if you look in the description below too, you'll see links to some of the video for the incidents that occurred last night. You'll see with Patrick Kane here as he was going towards the bench. Got a little bit of a slash going towards the bench in the game last night, and turned around and absolutely two-handed. I forget who it was in the game, but literally just Patrick Kane out there just swinging. I mean, swinging like two hands close together. Swinging, whacking at the hand or the leg, wherever it wound up landing on the opposing player. It was a pretty little nasty hit, and it's going to cost him $5,000. Oh, was it Nick Ritchie? It was Nick Ritchie of the Anaheim Ducks. Again, love it. NHL game number 366 in Chicago on Monday, November 27th. Player safety announcing that they have fined Patrick Kane $5,000. The incident occurred at 15:47 in the third period. Kane was assessed a minor penalty for slashing. The money will go into the player's emergency assistance fund. Player number 2 with the dumb move costing him $5,000. Matt Dumba. He went from being a minus on his team this year to then pretty much contributing fairly well, and now coughing up $5,000 in fines, according to the collective bargaining agreement during the game, number 365 in in Winnipeg. On Monday, November 27th, National Hockey League's Department of Player Safety announced the incident occurred at the 20-minute mark of the first period, so essentially when the period was over. Dumba was assessed a minor penalty for unsportsmanlike conduct. Money goes to the player's emergency assistance fund. A couple of things I find interesting here, that the National Hockey League refused to put down what it was or link any sort of video as if this was in 2017 and we couldn't find it in 3 seconds. Again, if you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, link is in the description for both Dumba and Kane and their incidents. And, we got them up there for you so you guys can see. I don't know why the league doesn't do that. I mean, I know it's not a proud moment for them, levying fines, but still, you get kind of curious as to what it was for. And in the case of Matthew Dumba, we know he was on the bench, had the water bottle kind of pointing down low, picked it up, scored a little, and then put it back down. And that's what he was fined for. So Matt Dumba is going to fork over $5,000 as well for squirting the old water bottle on the ice, which is such a childish, move. I really, honestly, I hate it. I hate the water bottle squirt from the bench. It's immature. It's never good. It's never good for your team. Sometimes you catch a penalty for it, whatever the case may be. So not great for Matt Dumba. Dumb move. By the way, I looked into it too because we were talking about Gabriel Landeskog and the suspension that he received. According to the National Hockey League, under the CBA, I should say, not necessarily the league, but under the CBA, a player is labeled a repeat offender if there's any incident that happened or occurred during the previous 18 months. So it doesn't even go by season. It goes by 18 months. So even though Landeskog was a prior offender, he's not considered a repeat offender under the collective bargaining agreement if nothing has happened within 18 months. Clearly, this is something the players have put in, which I find funny because the players in the NHLPA are always trying to protect players. But a lot of times you're basically getting suspended because you're harming another player, So, but I know what the NHLPA's thought process is. Like most unions, they're thinking, well, we don't want our guys to lose a lot of cash. So came up with this 18-month rule, and that's the deal. Now, the interesting thing here for the player safety department is they can take under consideration prior offenses. So what this means is, again, the league does enjoy a little bit of gray area. They do enjoy a little wiggle room. What that means is if there was a prior incident under 18 months, the league has no choice but to levy a harder fine and a longer sentence, right? They have to do what's required. Like in the case of these guys, these were minor unsportsmanlike offenses, $5,000 minimum. That is it, sort of like that. So if there is a prior offense within the 18 months, they have to do something more. If there's not, they don't. So what that does is that gives them the ability to say, well, okay, this was really bad. And even though there wasn't anything in the prior 18 months, we know there was 2 more incidents prior to this. So we're going to come down a little bit harder. Now that gives the NHLPA a little wiggle room in case they want to appeal. But essentially that gives the league and player safety that little wiggle room to say, well, all right, this wasn't that bad. And his last offense wasn't that bad. So he doesn't have anything in the prior 18 months. So we can just give him 4 games or whatever, like in the case of Landeskog. But if they want to come down heavier, they can say, well, he did have an offense, 2 years ago. So we are going to give him like an extra game here or there. Or they can say, we don't want to come down too hard. So nothing in the last 18 months. So he gets nothing. So that's the rule. According to the CBA, a player is labeled a repeat offender if there's anything during the previous 18 months. Touching base on a couple of other things. Edmonton goes tonight. I'm going to bring up the schedule here so I can see. There's a lot of great hockey action tonight. And I know we're getting close to 7 o'clock. Apologies to those listening on the podcast. But there's a lot of action tonight. A lot of good games. Tampa and Buffalo. That should be a nice blowout. By the way, we've been getting a lot of 7-goal games, 8-goal games. Last night we had 2 7-goal games. Winnipeg destroyed Minnesota 7-2. Chicago beat Anaheim by a score of 7-3. It's funny, both the games that cost these players the $5,000 fines. They both scored 7 goals. I predict we're getting at least a 7-goal game out of Tampa Bay tonight against the Buffalo Sabres as they go in Buffalo tonight at 7 o'clock. You know what's interesting? I was reading Elliot Friedman's 31 Thoughts. And one of the thoughts that came up, they were touching base on Buffalo. And they were talking about Buffalo, and I forget who it was on Buffalo, if it was a player or a coach. Scrambling to find it for you quickly here. But essentially, the feeling was, after they give up a goal, watch the team. Look at how much they stink. And confidence can play a huge role in these games. And we know that Buffalo is severely underachieving. They're not anywhere near where they thought they were going to be. And I know that is a big, big reason. Okay. Buffalo players were unanimous on one of their problems. As one said, so clearly one that doesn't want to be quoted in the paper, watch us for 5 minutes after we give up a goal. We lose trust in the system and everyone tries to fix it themselves. It sounds so simple, but it's so true. When things go badly, it's even more important to stay with what you know. I think that Jack Eichel is guilty of this, trying to fix it all himself, and he's not going to be able to, even though he's a hell of a player. He is not going to be able to do it on his own. But you can see, like, that's the problem. Like, confidence. Can you come back from a 2-goal deficit? Can you rally back down 3? Can you cough up a lead 3 times in a game and find a way to squeak it out in the shootout? That's what makes good teams great, or great teams good. So I thought that was pretty interesting. So, but either way, Buffalo's going to get destroyed tonight. We all know that that's going to happen. Sorry to say, but it is quite true. Buffalo will be destroyed this evening. Sorry. Islanders in Vancouver. I like this matchup a lot. Vancouver is surging. Vancouver is overachieving. The Canucks are playing really good under Travis Green. Travis Green, a former New York Islander, back in his old stomping grounds, although not really, because Brooklyn's nobody's old stomping grounds, unless you're Biggie. Vancouver, as they sit right now, are just tied for the last wild card spot with the San Jose Sharks. So they're playing hella good right now. In their last 10, they're 4-4-2, so not so great, but they are far ahead of where we thought they would be, being ahead in the standings, ahead of Dallas, Minnesota, Anaheim, and Edmonton. So I think this is a good test of the Vancouver Canucks because the Islanders are playing hella good right now. Isles are rolling. In their last 10, 7-2-1. It is indeed one of the best records in the National Hockey League right now. Sans the St. Louis Blues, who in their last couple of games are... Oh, no, I'm sorry. It's Nashville. It was Nashville, who was 8-1-1 in their last 10. Actually, Vegas is 9-1-0 in their last 10. So, the hell with it all. Sin City is killing everybody right now. Islanders are playing really good, plus 10 goal differential. They are in the 3rd playoff spot in the Metropolitan Division, and they sit there with 30 points right now, just 1 point behind Columbus and 2 behind the Devils, a point ahead of Washington and Pittsburgh. So the Islanders are playing really good right now, really hot. Key to the Islanders game, everybody above Tavares is scoring. Like, when Tavares isn't putting the puck in the net, this team usually just tanks. Tavares, aside from that amazing assist on the Bailey goal in overtime the other day against Philly, Tavares not really chipping in all that much. He's having an okay year, maybe a smidge slow. He's slowed down a little bit, but the entire team is playing good. Barzal, we talked about him, up for that Rookie of the Year status, is being amazing. Ball Peach, good point out. Eddie V, welcome to the show there on YouTube. See you watching, brother. Thanks for being a part of it. And you got Bozer over there for the Vancouver Canucks, and he's doing really good for Vancouver. In fact, he's one of the bright spots on why they're playing so well is his rookie campaign. So if I had to pick a game to watch tonight, I do think that Vancouver and the Islanders could be the tightest matchup. Could be a really, really good matchup. Tampa, Buffalo, we all know Tampa's going to win. Florida, the Rangers. Rangers at home have been outstanding. Florida not that great this year. I like the Rangers in this game. Flyers in San Jose, give that one to the Sharks with ease. The Flyers stink. Carolina, Columbus could be close, although I think Columbus will pull it out. You got the Kings in Detroit. Chicago and Nashville will be a really good game. That's the national game tonight at 8 o'clock. Toronto and Calgary will be good at 9. Arizona and Edmonton is a battle of who could care less. And Dallas and Vegas will be great, but that's at 10 o'clock. And I host a morning show on the radio, so I will never, ever be able to stay up for that game. So therefore, it is insignificant to me. So Vancouver and the Islanders, I think, is going to be the interesting game to watch tonight if anybody's worried about what's going to be the nail biter this evening. While we're on the subject of teams that suck, the Edmonton Oilers, we talked about disappointments and surprises last show. Edmonton has not won 2 games in a row this season. Jesus, these guys suck. Just terrible. Edmonton has not put back-to-back wins together this entire season. They've won 9 games out of 24, and they haven't been able to put 2 winners together. I mean, that is unbelievable. Speaking of bad, and they're starting to fall down the ranks a little bit, starting to come down to reality to where they really are. The Philadelphia Flyers have been abysmal in their last 10. 1-3-6. I mean, they're keeping it close, but they're finding ways to lose. And that's never good. That is never good. When you're finding ways to win and it's working, then it's working. When you're finding ways to lose, that's when you start looking at draft picks. That's when you start going, who are those good prospects this year? I'm going to get a look at that. I'm going to call out my old buddy Craig Button and see where he and Bob McKenzie and see where they're ranking the rookies this year, because that's where we're going. Eddie V, Calgary will crush Toronto tonight. Be interesting to see. I do love the Toronto Maple Leafs. I'm one of the few that do. 7-2-1 in their last 10 games. Calgary is also doing really well. 6-3-1 in their last 10. But Calgary is all that one line. Calgary is all that Johnny Gaudreau line. Bringing up dailyfaceoff.com so we can get a look and see who else is on his line tonight. Monahan and Furland. Those guys are killing it up there for the Calgary Flames. I think if you could figure out a way to minimize those guys, you'll be all right if you're Toronto. You'll be all right. Leafs always get jet lag. You know, the truer statement never told there, Eddie V, because the Leafs also, I think, have lost the last like 8 meetings with them or something insane. Or Calgary has won 7 out of the last 10 or something insane like that. Calgary has had their number. Really, really had their number. Florida beating the Devils was disappointing. It always is a little disappointing when you're killing it and you lose to one of the poor teams. And that's something the Islanders have been familiar with. But we talked about this the other night when we were talking about teams that build and build and build and then never get there. And I mentioned Toronto in that discussion, and we talked about the Islanders in that discussion. You know who we really got to talk about in that discussion is the Philadelphia Flyers. Because, Jesus, they stink. I mean, Islander and Ranger fans must love the fact that they stink. But this combination of, 17, 28, and 93, I hate to say it, but it ain't working. You know, it's not working. Giroux is such a great player. You know, he really is. Giroux is an awesome player. And I think he's a good captain. And I like Wayne Simmons, and he picked up who demand. I think they're a few pieces away, but the problem I find is maybe your best isn't good enough. You know, that's the issue with the Philadelphia Flyers. Kane and Taves, Crosby, Malkin, and Kessel. You know, those 1-2, 1-2-3 punches. I don't know how good the 1-2 punch is for the Philadelphia Flyers right now. I just don't know if they're good enough. I just don't know. It sucks to say that, but it's true. You know, the Flyers just may flat out not be good enough. And if I'm sitting over there in Philly, I'm looking at this team going, well, I like Nolan Patrick. I mean, I like Provorov. I do need some goaltending. And, Simmons, Giroux, and Voracek, are they really getting it done for me? Perhaps it's time for a little bit of a shakeup. The Flyers may need more of a shakeup than a flat out, rebuild. We probably should be talking about a shakeup more than a rebuild. But, the Flyers need something, because it's not good to every year be hoping for that eighth and final wild card position. Not that Ranger fans, Pittsburgh fans, or Islander fans are complaining, or Devils fans for that matter. It's good that they're not doing all that great right now for all those teams, but you got to do something. Let's talk about Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh, who came from behind after losing Matt Murray to beat the Flyers, are now looking for a goaltender. That's going to be big for the Pittsburgh Penguins. This is going to be the big discussion this morning. Now, we touched on this briefly on the last show or the show before that Ian Cole has been unhappy with the Pittsburgh Penguins. I don't know if he's asked for a trade or whatever it is. I mean, I'm sure he has, because Jim Rutherford has granted his agent the ability to go out and find a trade. Now, what's interesting about that, too, we saw this with Vegas and Shipachyov earlier. The Flyers need a goalie badly. They do. The Flyers, that goalie spot for them has been a curse for them. The one year they sort of figured it out was the year they went to the Cup final. And Bobrovsky was head case supreme, But getting back to Pittsburgh, when a player's agent is involved in trying to get a trade, in this case, with Shipachyov, it was different. You had a disgruntled player. Ian Cole, I don't know if he's disgruntled as much as it's like he's good and he's not getting in the lineup. And again, we've seen this with Jim Rutherford. He pulled a move off in the beginning of the season with that young defenseman that he knew he wasn't going to make the roster. He doesn't mind shipping those guys out. If they're not going to play and they're good enough, he doesn't mind sending them out, trying to get something back for them. We saw him do it last year with, what's his name, the goaltender there, Condon. Held on to Condon for as long as he could, got a 5th-round pick for it. Not a great haul, but not bad. Not entirely bad. So Ian Cole is in the same boat, and I think the indication here is because Rutherford said, well, if you can find a trade, go ahead. I'm sure Rutherford even said, this is the minimal I'm willing to take, 6th-round pick, 5th-round pick, 4th-round pick. I want to whatever price he gave him. With Cole's agent out there, because he's becoming an unrestricted free agent, it gives Cole an ability now for a trade and sign, So that's what they're probably looking for. Like, not only does Cole want to move on, but he also wants to sign wherever he's going to move on to. This way you're not a rental for a team that is, looking for their playoff run. So that's where the Pittsburgh Penguins are. Now, the interesting part here, which is where the Toronto Maple Leafs come into the mix, is Toronto could use a defenseman. Ian Cole may not be perfect, but he's pretty close to perfect. And Toronto has a couple of goalies in the system, mainly Garrett Sparks and Calvin Pickard. So if Matt Murray is going to be out for quite some time, which we believe he is, in fact, the official word just came down a little while ago that he is week to week. I found that to be interesting. So they've thrown Matt Murray on IR, which again is great for fans of any Metro division team that it's not Pittsburgh. Matt Murray is going to be on IR. And I think the consensus is, judging by what we saw the injury to be, probably around a month. And you could plummet a lot in a month. I mean, you could lose a lot of ground in a month. And Pittsburgh is in no position to lose a lot of ground, because with the surge of the Islanders, they've knocked them down into the wild card. With the surprise of the Devils, with Washington fighting their way back into the mix, if the season ended right now, the Rangers wouldn't be in a playoff spot. It's crazy to think, but the Rangers would be out. which again is why I say they should consider trading Lundqvist. But you can't say that when they've won 8 of their last 10. So Pittsburgh has to make a decision here. Can they go with these young guys? Can the young guys keep them in the mix? I don't honestly know. Now, we know Murray missed some time early in this season, so Pittsburgh had no other choice but to go with their young guys. I'm going to try and bring up their stats right now. Tristan Jarry, 2.83 goals against in 4 games that he played. And Casey DeSmith had 1 game played and a 4.29 goals against average. So clearly Jarry is going to be the guy there. Can he maintain? Can he hold on to it for you? Can he keep the other teams to 3 goals or less? Can Pittsburgh continue to pump out some pretty good offense and find a way to win, scoring 4 or 5 goals? By the way, it may be also noteworthy here that Pittsburgh has a minus 16 goal differential. They are the best team in a playoff position right now that has a goal differential that terrible. Minus 16. In the East, in a playoff position, the only team, the next worst team, has a goal differential of minus 1. That's Detroit and Washington. They have a goal differential of minus 16. I mean, the only teams that are worse than Pittsburgh is Arizona at minus 31, which is just downright pitiful. Buffalo at minus 28 and Montreal at minus 21. There's only 3 teams with a worse goal differential. They're the only one with a goal differential that awful. And they're still in a playoff position. That is unbelievable. Really unbelievable. That means they have lost a lot of games by a big score. So can Tristan Jarry come in and do the work? Is he enough for them? Or does Rutherford have to go out there and pull somebody else in? We'll wait and see. I'm sure it'll take the next couple of days, but I predict that there'll be a trade there because that's a natural fit. Send Cole up, whatever you were going to get from a 5th round pick, get the goalie, get a Garrett Sparks, get a Calvin Pickard. Calvin Pickard would be the find for me. I like Calvin Pickard a lot. I thought he was going to thrive in Vegas. He didn't. He's up in Toronto right now. He's at what for this season? No, that's not this season. Last 5 games. He's 1-2 in the last 5 games. He's got a 2 goals against average in the last 5 games that he's played. So far in Toronto. Let's just go to his career numbers. He's a career 2.7. So Calvin Pickard comes in and plays well for you. That's when you can get your 4th, 5th round draft pick, send him on his way once Matt Murray comes back into the fold, so you don't have to carry 3 goaltenders. And I don't know if Calvin Pickard is waiver eligible. I know he was down in the minors, but I still think he had to pass through waivers. So that's that for the Pittsburgh Penguins. I can see an easy trade there for Ian Cole going up. I don't know who else you can make a deal with. Defenseman. I mean, a seriously good blue-collar defenseman. Touching on this because it seems to be my favorite topic, and this was also part of Elliot Friedman's 31 Thoughts. He sat down and had a phone conversation with George McPhee, and here's an interesting thing with the Vegas Golden Knights. 17 players the Vegas Golden Knights. The restricted free and shut up, fans of everybody else, because if you think your team is going to pick apart an outstanding player like a James Neal or a Jonathan Marchessault, you're sadly mistaken. You're sadly mistaken. It's just not going to happen. By the way, nothing is stopping this team from making these signings. they have David Clarkson on the roster at 5.2 because it helps them get to the cap floor. They have a current cap space of $11 million. So if James Neal wants a raise on his $5 million, he'll get it. And they'll give it to him. If David Perron wants a raise on his 3.75, he doesn't deserve a raise, but he'll get it. Jonathan Marchessault makes $750,000. If he's a 30 goal scorer for a second time now, and he wants to be making $5-6 million, he'll get it. And Vegas Golden Knights have plenty of room to give it to him. Plenty of room. That's not going to be an issue whatsoever. 7:16. Some of the games have started, so that's where we're going to leave you off for tonight. Learned a lot there. Philly sucks. Pittsburgh needs a goalie. They're going to trade Ian Cole. Edmonton hasn't won back-to-back games this season. Vegas Golden Knights have 17 players on the current roster without contracts. And if you haven't done a no-no in the last 18 months, you are not considered a repeat offender by the collective bargaining agreement. Good show tonight. Thanks all for the comments. Again, if you're on the podcast, rate and review that. Make sure you're sharing these posts on Facebook, YouTube. Hit the thumbs up if you can on the video. Leave us a comment below. And of course, don't forget to hit that bell and subscribe so you don't miss the live shows. We're back tomorrow with another live show. 5 daily live shows a week. That's what we're doing on the Hockey Talk Show. Feels good in this 6 o'clock hour, but we still might change it to an earlier time. So we'll keep you posted on that. Eventually, we will settle into a definite time, and then when something breaks, we'll go on again. That'll be our sort of deal. But for now, we're just still trying to figure out where the audience likes the show being. So if you want to let us know that in the comments, you can do so as well. Good night of hockey ahead. Tampa destroys in their game tonight Vancouver and the Islanders. That's the one to watch. That'll be a tough, grinded out, really hard game. No score in any of the games just yet. Flyers just put one on the board against San Jose, and Columbus just scored, just as I said that. So there you go. I will see you guys on the next shift. Thanks as